Thank you for joining us for today's Magic in the Room. Before we start our episode, I want to ask for your help spreading the word about Magic in the Room. If you listen to the podcast and think it's helpful, would you please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen? Once you leave a review, take a screenshot and send it to info@purposeandperformancegroup.com, and we'll send you a free Magic in the Room hat. Reviews are one of the best ways for people to find us, so we're thankful for the help. Now enjoy today's episode.
Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. In this weekly podcast, Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello and welcome to Magic in the Room. I am Hannah Bradroot.
And I'm Luke Freeman.
And I'm Chris Province. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Chris.
Good to be here. Man, I want to jump into something today. We're covering our 6 discoveries of high performance this year. And one of those concepts is that execution is really the test of your system. So if you have the right mindset orientation, your roles are clear, your purpose is authentic and clear, you're following, commitments that are synced with your purpose and your roles, then you get this level of execution, which is the things we learn and the things that we do. And really for today, I thought we'd just dial it into practicality and talk about superpowers and like what are the things, what are the skills or talents, whether they're developed or maybe a little more innate, that each one of us possess that allows us to execute. So when we are most productive, what is it about us that makes us productive? And Luke, I think as we talked about this earlier, really this concept that we're going to lay out today, it's intended to provide a framework for leaders to speak with the people that they support or lead, to have a framework for these conversations.
Right. And one of the kind of foundational principles here is that there's much higher return on investment of our time if we focus on strengths and leveraging strengths and developing the strengths of our people than if we focus on their weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And do we have to address weaknesses from time to time? Yes, absolutely. But organizations that really have much more conversation around strengths have better payout for that time and for their people development. And so, we're using a fun tool today to try and model that. And we're going to do this for the next 3 episodes. So we'll have one focused on each of us, where we essentially ask questions and interview and give feedback about one of the strengths of those people. And yes, the intent is that someone can listen to this and then go back to their organization, maybe someone that reports to them, and have a coaching conversation around one of their strengths. A tool that we think is helpful we're using today is a book called FYI, which stands for For Your Improvement. And it's put out by Korn Ferry, which, quick plug for Korn Ferry. I promise they're not giving us a check. We just, out of all of the large organization development firms, if you think McKinsey, Deloitte, Accenture, stuff like that, Bain, Korn Ferry, we really like their approach. Mm-hmm. We really like their DNA. And so when we're going to have to purchase, large organizational intervention stuff, training programs, whenever it gets too big for what we do at Purpose and Performance Group, Korn Ferry is what we'll often refer people to and talk with. They just, I think they see where the future of organization design is going. Mm-hmm. So essentially this FYI book, it's a book of 38, am I right? Potential competencies and strengths, and then also a few career blockers. And it's really helpful. It gives very concrete examples of what it looks like when someone is skilled, what it looks like if they're less skilled, or even if they overuse the skill. And so we're going to kind of walk through that today. And I guess I'm first up. So, but that's the idea, right? And so feel free to listen and then model coaching conversation around this.
Yeah. So the way that we picked this, the person that's not in the hot seat, so to speak, the other 2 picked their superpower and said, this is how you show up to us. And when you're at your best, this is what we see showing up the most. So to dig in, so we're going to cover Luke's productivity superpower today. And Hannah and I decided that when Luke is at his best, it is his ability to look into the future, to see ahead, identifying possibilities, and really translating that possibility into some breakthrough strategy. And this competency is named strategic mindset. So we're going to kind of issue Luke this badge of, thank you for having the strategic mindset, for always looking, kind of getting above the tree line, looking at things at 30,000 feet and saying, hey, I think there's going to be an opportunity over here. How do we start working towards that? So my first question for you, Luke, is that just how you're wired? Is how much is skill and how much is talent? And if you can back it up with, why does it align with how you see work?
Yeah, man, big question. How much is DNA and how much is acquired skill? I don't know. I'm going to guess that it's 70-80% just how I'm wired to think strategically and really think in long longitudinal horizons instead of short-term horizons, and to see systems. I think there definitely have had to have been some experiences that reinforce that. And, I'll say growing up in organizations like the church I was in, coming to strategic decisions. I remember I was on the youth representative for the council for the church. And I was like, well, strategically, this decision, when faced with A versus B, B is the answer, right? It's so clear. But then seeing that the system, chose solution A instead of solution B, I think I started from an early age seeing the way that systems move and operate and, and figuring out, well, how do we leverage the system to move in a direction that's more strategic? Some of that we'll get into probably how this strength turns into a weakness. Cause oftentimes I won't be as attuned to the people, and I'll be more attuned to whatever the ecosystem or the system or the product or whatever it is.
Now, is that, kind of getting back to why it's synced, this superpower of strategic planning, why that synced with how you view work? Does that have everything to do with your system's view of the world?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I see people and then the work environments that they're in as totally co-creating outcomes. And so work creates outcomes in people's lives, and the people and their unique purpose, beliefs, whatever, also create the outcomes of a business. And yeah, so I see it as this interplay ecosystem, and how we move it forward can be a designed thing. So whenever I did, competency assessments, whatever it is, when you do ASVAB and when you, what's your career thing that you do in high school, oftentimes I would get architect as something that came up, and I'm not a math guy, or engineering, things like that. I'm not a math guy. Numbers don't stick for me very well or work in my mind naturally. But I have kind of, upon reflecting on that, always been kind of the architect or the engineer of a human experience or a human team. And how do you take the different structural elements of someone's experience and create a certain outcome or design an experience for folks?
So, Luke, I'd love to hear maybe some examples of how you're using the superpower. There's a quote here in the FYI book that says, in strategy, it is important to see distant things as if they were close and to take a distant view of closed things. And that's by Japanese swordsman and samurai, Miyamoto Susashami. I totally butchered the name, but
that was an exceptional butchering.
That was really bad.
But yeah,
I'm hungry for sushimi now.
Yeah,
so I do like that.
So let's think about that though.
Yeah.
Looking at distant things as if they're close, and close things as if they're distant. How does that land with you, and how do you apply that?
Yeah, I mean, that totally resonates with me. So looking at distance things as if they're close, I will oftentimes have a vision for how things should be. And it's very tangible in my mind. Like I can see 5 years from now, what product should we be offering? What experience should our team be having? What types of messages are going to be resonating with people? Whatever it is, right? I can almost like feel it. I can almost like see it in my mind visually. And just to kind of hang on that, like where I've really had to take that and develop it is around the communication of that vision. So for me, maybe the nature versus nurture question you asked earlier, by nature, I can have that vision and see far away things as if it was close and see possibilities. What I've had to really develop around that as a skill is communication. So how do I communicate those really intuitive visions in clear ways where other people without the same level of kind of strategic intuition, where they can feel them the same way that I do? And then what sort of reverse engineering do I have to do to figure out the steps to get there to be able to bring people along? Because it's not enough just to have a compelling or a tangible vision. And then the second part of that, seeing things that are close up as if they're far away. The thing that comes to mind for me is like an emotional detachment to current state and being able to say, well, yeah, we do that now, but there's nothing extraordinarily special about the way we do it now, which a lot of people disagree, right? They feel a lot of comfort in the way things are done now. I've never really felt that. I've never like gained security or comfort based on, well, this is how we've always done it. I've always really gained my energy by chasing after those visions of what could be.
Right. Then, I think that calls out that growth mindset, right? But this idea that, what I'm taking away from you saying there, and it's something that we use as language within our organization, the only thing that keeps us from being what we're supposed to be is what we're doing today. So if I'm emotionally attached to what I'm doing today, my ability to grow becomes constrained. But the least effort thing to do is to attach to status quo. But if we can emotionally release that, or the idea of the security that comes with what we're doing today, and I think we really open up possibilities.
Yeah. So I'll give an example. I was responsible for leading a leadership training program for high school and college students. And it was in flight whenever I gained leadership of it. And a lot of people signing up and coming, registering for this program, paying for this program. And I had this intuition, I guess, this belief that the harder the program was, the more that the true leaders in the ecosystem would be drawn to the program. And so my vision was that, well, in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, like we are going to be releasing leaders out of this program who truly are world-class leaders and have very high leadership capacity as young adults. But to do that, the program had to be designed in such a way that it was hard to get in. And so it like sparked that competitive hunger in the high performers, and that it wasn't a cakewalk, that it challenged people to really the highest points of their skill as they engaged in it. So for me, that vision was pretty compelling. Like I wanted to work with the cream of the crop, wanted to develop them, wanted to release them to do things that in my mind, like truly would be world changing. But you can imagine viewing the close up at a distance wasn't easy for everyone, right? Like, well, what about so-and-so? They're not going to like this. And their parents who have paid for this aren't going to like this.
Right.
And like, what's it going to mean when we have people work this many hours doing service work as part of the program? Like, that's not going to be a popular decision because it's just hard. I even designed kind of the first level of it. I was like, okay, the goal is they get halfway through this experience and they want to go home. And then for those that push through, it becomes super rewarding. And, for me, that made a ton of sense with my vision, but there was some pain with those program changes.
Sure. I mean, because you might have, I mean, who you're excluding from that are, people that, low curiosity, too busy. There's, people that want to have that short-term focus. Like, I'm
Right.
not trying to be a world-class leader. I just want something productive to do this summer.
Right.
So there's this balancing act of when things, especially when you look at something that's longitudinal and complex, right? You're eliminating a lot of the market.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so when you come from this place of a real strategic mindset, how do you engage and get the highest value contribution from those people I just talked about? Like people that are in the organization that aren't overly curious, like they want to be tactical, they want to focus on this summer or the next quarter or this 1 year. Like, I'm not trying to
Right.
be here 20 years.
Right.
How do you connect and get contribution? And
Yeah.
or do you set up the whole organization? I mean, you can't have everybody being strategic.
No.
Right?
No. So I've mentioned communication already. So you
Yeah.
really have to hone your communication skills and practice them. And for me, it's been painful. Like, I have not been able to fulfill visions and strategies because I haven't been able to communicate them effectively, or I didn't have the communication skill. So, like, true pain there as a strategic person who's forced to do, in my opinion, unstrategic things because I was not able to essentially sell the strategy or the
Right.
vision.
Right.
So that's one, is communication. The second is, like, who are the people that you can build enough trust with that kind of fit into what you were describing, like maybe not as strategic, more practical, more interested in the short term. How do you develop a few of those key relationships that you can essentially, like, market test your messages with?
Yeah.
And be able to create strategies that meet their needs and also fulfill the strategy before you kind of take it to a wider audience. Because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by unveiling a strategy that in your mind is super clear, but people are just gonna be like, oh, that's crazy, whatever. So if you can use a few of those trusted folks who are different than you, to workshop with and meet their needs a little bit and answer questions. And I mean, that's a little bit of a long, painful process too, but super important if you really want to do some sort of significant change.
Right. So really bringing people along is really important here, right? So we're not just kind of hanging out there in the future, operating in a vacuum and not benefiting the organization and the people in it. So I think that kind of lends itself to a conversation around what happens when we're overusing our skill and our talent, right? I think there's always a trap to fall into there. So let's take a quick break for our question of the day, and then we'll come right back and answer that question.
All right, so here we go with our question of the day. And, this is our segment where we try to model discovery of one another, other people's personality, getting kind of past the work and getting to know the people that we're connected with. So today we're going to do a little bit different exercise. I know this is one that we like to do in workshop scenarios or maybe strategic planning. Just anytime we have a team of people around, we like to use props a lot of times. And if you go out there on the internet, there's a ton of different resources. But one of the things we like to do is use decks of cards to just kind of instigate conversation. And today, let's see, we grabbed a couple from our pile here. We've got some from Big Life Journal. They're the 3 C's, the conversation creator cards. We've got a How Dare You deck from Pod Decks, and then we have an interview deck. And we'll put links to those resources in the comment section of this episode. But basically, there's probably hundreds of these resources out there, and they're all going to have a little bit different flavor based on who the creator is. But regardless, they're fun to play with and learn with. So today, I laid out 3 decks here, and we're all just going to
pick a card, answer the question. And whatever that question you pull is, that's the question of the day. And this could get interesting. So let's see what happens. Luke, you want to be the brave one and go
I get
first?
to go first? Okay. I'm going to pick from the How Dare You.
Uh-oh.
Okay, the question I got. Have you ever gone to the bathroom in the pool?
Ooh.
This is a good question. I mean, I'm sure yes. Like when we were kids, surely everyone did. I'm going to interpret this, though, as an adult. Have you gone to the bathroom in the pool? And I will tell, this might be a gross story, but I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell a story about my young adulthood. I was working at a summer camp, and dumb trends happen when you're with a group of like 60 to 80 college students. And one of the summers, there was a trend where a few people thought it was really funny to stand on the pool deck and pee your swim trunks for all the world to see before you jumped in the pool.
Right. Wow.
And I will say there is some novelty to it. You know, there's like, I'm doing something in public that I never do in public. People can see my urine, but then I'm jumping in a chlorinated pool. So it's kind of like no harm, no foul. Like it's just a funny college guy, dumb thing that trended. I don't think I ever saw one of the ladies do it. Mm-hmm. One of the young women with us. And my guess is they didn't like this trend. It probably didn't, attract too many of the ladies around. But yeah, I partook. I was a pee your pants person. And to the extent that I have told my kids that it's an option if they and dared them.
Wow.
There's been some dares of my preteens. So anyway, I'll end the story there. I don't have their permission to share their public urination stories. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know the How Dare You deck. It's got some colorful questions in there.
Yeah.
Hannah, where are you going to go?
Well, I'm going to go with the interview deck since it's right in front of me. And we'll see where it goes. Okay. If you decide to get cremated, where would you want your ashes spread?
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one. That's interesting. I've actually never thought about that. So,
Nuh-uh. Seriously?
yeah, I mean, it will have to be on a mountaintop somewhere. Like that's just a given. But where? In Norway? Probably. Maybe off the Pulpit Rock, the really famous big, broad rock jutting out over a fjord. I've never been there though, so it doesn't really have a very strong significance. It just seems like a very, like a significant place. So probably somewhere on a mountain in Norway, but I'll have to think about exactly where.
Yeah.
Something to keep an eye out for over the next year.
Yeah, right?
46.
Go scouting.
All right. That's a good one. I think as much I really want to do the How Dare You, because I think it'll give me the most colorful question.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go with the Big Life Journal conversation cards here. And see, this question sucks. So here's the good thing. I just throw it back like that. And I pull the next one. And if this one sucks, I'm going to go to the other deck. Oh, okay. What are you most thankful for?
Good one.
So, the question here to spur a little bit of gratitude, which is always a healthy thing. Today, I am most thankful for my health. I feel great today. I'm thankful for a lot. I'm thankful for the people in my life. But today, I'm thankful for an ability to enjoy them fully, knowing that not everyone is in that position. Mm-hmm. So I want to take today and be thankful as I enjoy the people around me. So,
yeah. So, the cool thing about these cards and this, icebreaker type thing is that, I've been facilitating group experiences and conversations for 20 years, and I still have trouble coming up with, what's the question that we want to get people connecting with one another over. And we live in a world right now where I can Google things really easily, or I can just carry one of these cards or one of these decks in my backpack, and it just makes it easy. So I would really encourage any leaders, and you don't have to be someone that is a professional group development person, right? Just any leader. And, you mentioned different settings. We do this face-to-face a lot, strategic planning and groups that we're working on team development or leadership practices, but also like on a virtual call. No problem at all with saying, okay, guys, holding the cards up in front of the camera, like, all right, I'm going to pick one of these and see what it is. And just spending 5 or 10 minutes getting some answers. So just encourage folks, like, planning matters. Just having one of these decks on your desk makes investing in the inner relationships of your team really easy. So like, just do the thing, spend 5 minutes now to order something, and then it'll be very pain-free anytime you want to, pick it up and use it.
Yeah, another resource, Ben, as we post these, I'd like to post the Thumball resources, if we can list the Thumbballs, because those are fun to, really, it's just a deck on a ball, right? You throw it around, whether your thumb lands, that's the question you answer. It could be, what's your favorite food? What was the first concert you went to? Just a lot of those types of questions. I love using those, like coming off a break or coming back from lunch, where that energy can be down. As people settle back in, I like to get this conversation going again. So, anytime I think we need to lift energy and create connection, I think asking questions, people love talking about their own experiences. So just a good way to do it. I know I carry 2 or 3 of these in my bag at any time. Sometimes it's questions. I got ones with pictures on them, ones with just words. And it's just a tool that's there and definitely takes some of the pressure off of me to create all the content. So something we want to share with all the leaders out there. Check it out. Look at the resources below in the links. And thank you guys for doing the question of the day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, so Luke, I posed the question earlier. What happens if we are overusing our skill or our talent? In this case, your superpower of strategic mindset. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so let me flip that back. I want to ask you guys, how do you see this overused?
Just don't ask him for a match. He'll want to rebuild how fire is made.
Okay, so
it's
maybe...
not like you're not going to get the history of fire. We're going to build fire differently. And we might even optimize the log setting. And we might even cut down different trees. We might cut the wood at different angles. We're not just getting a history of fire. So thank you for not boring us with the history of fire. Thank you for engaging us in new activities of how to, pick better trees and cut better angles as we split the wood.
So are you implying that Luke sometimes might be overcomplicating an issue?
Yeah, like we can even pull back the curtain on Oz a bit and talk about these episodes, right? Like we're talking about like how to do these episodes, and he's like, man, like Venn diagram, domains, like competencies, 5, 5, and 5. I'm like, how about we just talk about something? Can we just talk about the thing?
How can we edit every single word so that it sounds like the most highly produced, awesome podcast in the history of the
Hannah,
world?
Keep your hands off the table. 3 inches from the mic. No odd sounds. Please don't cough. Don't sniffle. Don't sneeze. Okay?
All right, okay. So you're taking a different strength, which is, aesthetic sensibility or perfectionism.
No, it's more strategic for those other noises not to exist. That noise is not strategic. Don't tap the microphone.
That is true, actually. There is a tie-in here. So, one of the things that I love to do and that I've been lucky enough to do it in my life quite a bit is backpacking as a sport and hobby. It's probably not a sport. as a hobby, a pursuit.
It's more of a sport than bowling.
Let me overcomplicate this.
Agreed.
It's actually technically a outdoor pursuit.
Okay.
Oh.
If you want to look at the science and lexicon of sport versus activity versus pursuit.
Gotcha.
So the reason that I love it is because packing and then carrying a backpack of stuff to go for a few days is essentially an exercise in strategy and efficiency to have what you need but not expend the effort to not have what you need.
Sure.
And so kind of cycling is one of my other things too. And like the reason I love it is because it's a strategic sport. If you're, it's not a time trial, right? There are time trials in cycling where it's just you pedaling as hard and as fast as you can. And there's some technique, obviously, with how you corner and yada, 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 and all the equipment. But in group cycling, like it's very much a strategic, how much energy do you expend when, and how do you use the group? How do you draft off of someone? How close do you need to be? How does a team work together to leverage what's happening in other teams that might be in the same group of riders? So yeah, I mean, it does
Sounds
kind of
really
connect.
theoretical, Luke.
So make things overly theoretical. Is that the
That
overuse that?
May also be
Complex and theoretical.
complex
Yeah.
and theoretical.
But I totally get it. Okay.
Yeah,
Like there's a better way to build the fire,
right.
and there's certainly better wood to use to make the fire more efficient.
Well, as
You
you were
know?
saying that metaphor, there was a part of me inside that was revolting. That was like, why would you not stack the wood in the best way possible? How is this even a good example? Because yes, there is a best way to build the
Because
fire.
somebody standing around the fire is just trying to get warm.
Right?
Yeah.
The people
So-
trying to get warm are irrelevant.
The people in search of a longer burning, more efficient fire, those are the ones that matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's who this fire is built for.
Okay, I think we have outlined an overuse. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's the, what you alluded to earlier before the break about communication and how important that is, right? So when you are not bringing people along on the journey, right, then it could mean that you're so far ahead that the rest of us kind of have a hard time seeing the connection, right? With where we're at and where, in the strategic vision of the future, things could be. And I think that is a skill and a fine balance, because being able to inspire that vision, right? That is such an important part of leadership.
Yeah. And what I would say, Luke, is like, guess what, man? Like, I don't want to follow the guy that's just standing by the fire to get warm. I want to follow the guy that wants to build the better fire. And that's why this strategic mindset is like of anything. Like leaders are 10 times more effective when they exhibit a strategic mindset. A lot of that is being able to read the tea leaves, right? Like what is going to happen? What are some of the icebergs we might hit? How are we going to navigate this space? Like having those conversations is what allows leaders to garner followers. Like I don't want to go through life we're just going to wander around bumping into stuff, right? So I think it's huge. We call it superpower for you, but it does bring so much to your leadership effectiveness and how people are willing to follow. Because I trust that you've surveyed the landscape. You know where we're heading. You understand the dangers ahead. And if there's something that is harmful, you care about the team in a way, and you have faith in our collective capacity that we can address this, but we have to address it.
Yeah.
We can't just walk into this thing and get murdered, right? So like, let's stop before we walk into that space. Let's have this conversation, and that way nobody dies.
Yeah.
So just kind of my notes on how this mindset influences my willingness to follow.
Yeah. Well, and I think even just to use our company as an example, I mean, Purpose and Performance Group in part exists because we saw the movement of the market towards purposeful work years before most people. And we're on here doing this
14 years ago, to be exact.
Yeah. I mean, we're sitting here right now in the middle of the Great Resignation, doing episodes about it and everything else. And still trying to convince people that every minute and dollar spent on creating meaningful work is worth it. And people still not understanding that or being willing to do the work to understand it or whatever it is. And we're in a really awesome spot.
Yeah.
Right. As an organization, as one of the first movers on this. But that's kind of the risk, right? It's also can be a lonely spot to be a first mover. And like you said, 14 years. I mean, we were like sold on this stuff way back in grad school and the market is catching up, but like how lonely are those 14 years?
Yeah.
And, it is essentially an exercise in how do you communicate and convince people that your vision of either the opportunity in the future or the problem that's coming in the future is an accurate vision of that problem or opportunity or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Time reveals all truths. And if we, and that was really, as we started this team, it's this idea is like the market will move to us. As long as we don't starve before the awakening, then we'll be great.
Right.
And I think that's basically where we sit today. Is we've been doing this work longer than 98% of all organizations that exist. And it is those soulful, courageous leaders that believe, have strategies that take them down a path, and they can see where we're headed.
Yeah. And I think for me, if I'm going to speak to other strategic mindset, skilled folks out there or gifted folks out there.
I never called you gifted.
Oh, okay. Well, I was trying to think of something besides skilled.
We can call our listeners gifted,
but
I don't
not me.
want you to go around thinking,
Yeah. Well, that's a tie-in to what I was going to say. Is like the thing that I would want people to know is that it becomes a really dangerous skill to have when it's not paired with humility. And I'll just give an example. So we're working with a client right now and they sell stuff. Like they sell a product, but they are not engaged in the ecosystem of other people selling and buying that product. So they're really depending on either direct, we're going to go out and find a buyer and we're going to have that one-to-one relationship, or someone Google searches and happens to find us.
Yeah.
So a strategy that I want to bring to them is we need to be engaged in the ecosystem of this product. Arms linked up with some other providers, but that's going to create access to a wider market of buyers. And our only job then is to differentiate ourselves and say, okay, well, they sell product A1, we sell product A2, and here's what differentiates 2. We're going to have to get really clear on that. Right? So I think that that's a correct strategy for them. I think it's going to pay dividends, but I don't know that for sure. And if I get in and pitch that and someone provides some sort of feedback like, oh, we tried that, or, oh, here's what you don't understand about the ecosystem, like I have to be really quick to take in that information and let that strategy kind of die on the vine. If for whatever reason, either it's flawed conceptually or they are not ready to execute it as a team. Like maybe 2 years from now is the right time to talk about that strategy instead of today. So that's the kind of stuff that I think as a strategist, you have to really keep in mind and be humble.
Yeah, that the humility of, from our experience and the other evidence we have, this looks like it could be an effective strategy. But because we have not deployed it, I cannot sit here and state without a shadow of a doubt hell or high water, this will create a win for this company.
Right.
And that's where, without that communication of, now I don't know what this means for us, but based on what else we've seen, I believe this may work. If we're just like, no, we got to do this. We have to do this. We have to link up with everybody else, and we have to get these direct relationships with the raw material providers, and we have to do it. We have to do it. This is the route to success. Well, guess what? When that doesn't succeed, there's no legs for that leader to stand on, because what they knew was going to happen didn't happen. When you pair it with humility, now there is no wrong or right. Does this make sense? Can it work? Yes. Are we committed to it? Yes. Did it produce the result we were looking for? No. Okay, let's go back and iterate again. But nowhere in that scenario does the leader lose their legs.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it shows up for me as a strategist in my personal purpose, which, I keep wordsmithing it. If you listen back to our episode, I use different words, 2 years ago, whenever we were recording that. Right now, I'm kind of saying, that my purpose is to invite leaders and teams to what's next. And that idea of invitation, it has that humility in it, really intentionally for me, that my purpose is to invite them to strategies, to ways of being, to ways to think about things, to activity, in their organization potentially. But it's their choice. They get to buy in. So even as a member of a team, I'll take our team, for instance, I might have a strategy that I'm excited about that I think we should execute on. We're talking about niching into a couple markets right now. But it's my job, even though I think niching into a couple particular markets could be helpful for us, it's my job to bring that to us and say, okay, what do we think? What holds water with this idea and this strategy, and what doesn't? So
that's awesome. Well, it is indeed a superpower. It does make you highly productive. I think that every high-performance team has to have some strategic component. Someone has to carry that pail. And I'm glad that you bring this for us. Like I said, makes me very willing to follow, and I appreciate your leadership and effort on a day-to-day basis, Luke. And I think, when I see you engage with our client partners and what that feel is in the room and the confidence that you can provide to work teams, that's where the rubber meets the road. So thanks for all your leadership.
Likewise. It's always fun and rewarding and exciting to work on new and innovative ideas, and we get to do that every day. So thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, if you want to connect with Luke, if you want to connect with Hannah or I, look us up, purposeandperformancegroup.com. Also, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of those social platforms that you happen to be on. Thank you for listening to Magic in the Room. And until next time.
Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, Hannah Bratteroo, and Luke Freeman, and produced by Ben West. Theme music is by Evan Grimm. Title track Fake Love available on Apple Music. And this podcast was recorded at Storycatcher Studio with video and audio editing and production support by Brad O'Hara and Alicia Crum, with inspiration, strategy and technical support by yours truly, Neil Hughes. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com, and remember, previous episodes are available at magicintheroom.com.